Yeah. And we approved it.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this August the 5th, 2024 equity meeting. I will start by, has everyone read the minutes? Is there any questions or concerns, comments with the minutes? If there's none, we will move on to addressing the board. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Just a quick question regarding our minutes, previous minutes. I know we had talked about in our previous minutes meeting when we had spoke, Dr. Jackson, I'm sorry, Chapman. We had talked about facilities and things like that, as far as like funding going to some schools and not to all. To my understanding, we now have a committee that's looking over contracts. Before it's signed off, before money goes to any of our schools, we have a committee that will be signing off, asking questions, and making sure that every dollar that we spend now is equitable?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's not just around athletics.
Yes. It's around the school.
It's all contracts. And I would say, even as of today, we're not interested, I am not interested in seeing contracts after they have been created. I am not interested in seeing contracts that I have not been a part of the process from the beginning through the end prior to board approval. And so as of yesterday, what's today, Monday? As of Friday, that discussion was had in our senior leadership meeting that, no, it was had today. Today, in our senior leadership meeting, that was discussed.
Okay.
That the process itself has to be a part of this contract review committee. So it won't be just to look at contracts that have already been created and readied for board approval. We want to be a part of the process from beginning in terms of how vendors are selected, why they are selected, how did we get to the selection of a particular company for a particular job. And so that's where we are now, is backing that up to ensure that the process is fair and equitable. But I would also say there is an athletics update, and I've said to our athletics/facilities group that we need to come back to equity and give an update after we provided those numbers, and a spreadsheet for you guys to look at back in June. So we'll be coming back with some updates and some new information around projects taking place in facilities across the district.
Thank you, and thank you for stepping up on that and helping out and making sure that every child has an opportunity to go to a safe and fair school. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. Hall. And then we'll have our speaker come up to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. I guess this is the best committee to start. And this conversation probably will get delivered harder. It will be a harder and harder conversation to have. And we're talking about equity, we're talking about diversity, we're talking about the schools. Putting systems in place, as Dr. Chapman has stated, putting systems in place to ensure that contracts are looked at with a DEI lens from beginning to end is a good thing. But we're putting systems in place around people that shouldn't be in place. And we can never get away from this. Okay, we can put a lot of systems in place to protect our kids. We can continue to say that we're going to approve stuff if it's in the best interest of the kids. But we have to acknowledge that some people are in places in business affairs that should not be there. We can talk about a recreation budget. We can talk about an athletics budget. You know what? Firestone is already built. Elliott is already built. They don't need to do anything. They don't need to participate in anything else because their stuff is already built. And when we come to and we start talking about the upkeep, that's where the dollars are now, the upkeep. I have sat in the back and I've listened to money go across this table, and they can always explain it afterwards. And I think the point was lost on the superintendent at the last meeting that it was improper to talk to a contractor when you have an open RFP. Okay? That is the problem. And we cannot stop people unless they're fired or terminated or reassigned. You cannot stop people from picking up the telephone and talking to contractors so that they can get contracts. And that is what has been going on. And so if we're really talking about what's in the best interest of the kids, again, $318 may not be a lot to somebody in Ward 8. It's a lot to somebody in Ward 3. It's a lot to somebody in Ward 4. $318, people are losing their homes for taxes. And so it's frustrating to sit here for the last 12 years, say the same thing, and the same people are making the same decisions, and we get a new we have 3 new superintendents, and the person is still there. Can we do something about business affairs? Can we all acknowledge that there's a problem, and that's where the money is? Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Harris. Well taken. All right, we will move on to our report, diversity officer report. Dr. Chapman.
Yes, thank you. In light of the recent discussions that have been had at board meetings, I wanted to bring something that stems from work we did in 2022. A different superintendent, different time. But in 2022, our Akron Public Schools staff across several divisions, business affairs, community partnerships, school climate, and human resources at the time, now human capital. 4 divisions participated in an equity self-assessment where we rated ourselves as teams across those 4 divisions, each division having a team of people walk through this self-assessment to rate ourselves. I am bringing to you today what was used for responsible sourcing, supplier diversity, especially in light of the conversations we've been having. So what you see in front of you was the self-assessment done by our business affairs team members in terms of where they stood on diversity, equity, and inclusion benchmarks in 2022. And you'll see each category laid out for you across the front and the back of this document. So if you start with reactive, our team did not choose any of the criterion under reactive because they felt that we were doing better work than that. So under reactive, you'll see a couple of statements. Engaging in DEI may be a supply proposal criterion, but it is given minimal importance. We did not select that as a team. I wasn't a part of that team. It was a business affairs team. We did not select, there is some attempt to include a few underrepresented suppliers, but primarily for small, one-time, or low-fee contracts, or because it is required by law. Again, we didn't select that because we thought we were doing better than that. When we get to proactive, you'll see what's listed there. All staff being responsible for sourcing are provided DEI education. We did not check that. And we have not yet provided all business affairs staff with DEI education. And we probably don't have the accountability measures in place that we need to achieve responsible sourcing goals. And by accountability measures, I am talking about the systems that are needed to be put in place to ensure that we are doing what we say we're going to do. You'll see yellow highlights as I go through these documents. Those are the areas that our team felt we were moving in the right direction on. So supplier database, including information about diversity of owners. We have a database. And about the goods and services that they provide. You'll see highlighted in yellow, the organization seeks opportunities to engage with and inform underrepresented suppliers that their business is welcome. We felt we were being proactive in that area. If you go to the back, you see progressive as a category. And I'll give you a moment to look at what is highlighted there, those two things that we felt we were being progressive in. Being proactive in seeking and attracting groups by informing both potential and established suppliers about business opportunities. We felt we were doing that in a progressive way. We also highlighted educational support and coaching provided to underrepresented suppliers. When we got to the best practice category, you'll see the two highlighted there. So I bring this because I've watched board meetings and I've watched the conversation, listened to the conversation, and it's just also important for me to note and to disclose that my positionality is that I also work within the system. And so I get to see it from that side as well. And we do have work to do. And so I bring this to say there was a process for assessing where we should be going and what our goals should be around supplier diversity. And now it is time to give it the resources, systems, processes, and backed by policy, which we have, to ensure that we are a best practice in our work. And that's really all I have. If you look on your board docs, you'll see the hyperlink to the actual document that goes through every single division's rating in those categories I told you about: community partnerships, human resources, business affairs, and school climate communications. Any questions?
I do have one question, Dr. Chapman. What you're talking about is what we talked about years ago, and having an equity department, so this department can work together to make sure all of this is embedded within everything that we do within Akron Public Schools. And now you're saying it's time for us to find some money to put this department together?
Based on our own rating, we have identified the areas where we could possibly say we're doing some work, and we've identified the areas by not checking them where work needs to be done.
Got it, okay. Any other questions? Madam President?
Thank you. So just so I'm clear, if it was not picked, it means they felt they were getting better?
They felt that they didn't need to choose supply proposal criterion having minimal importance because it was not true. So then you'd move to the next category, and you'd identify where you think you have strengths and where you think you don't. In the proactive category, when it is not checked, that means we have work to do. Where it is highlighted, there is an idea that we're moving in the right direction. You don't want to be in a proactive category. In a reactive category, in other words. You want to be in best practice or progressive.
And so when you say now we need the resources backed up by policy, what would be the number one resource that you would say? Because when we say about systems, and that's just not a matter of saying, okay, we have a system now. Like, what would be?
So back in 2022, I recommended to the then superintendent that we conduct some internal audits that would be conducted by external supports. And I think we were able to complete an audit on our then human resources department around pay. If you recall, there was a pay equity audit conducted at that time. There were also other components of human resources that we wanted to audit around interview practices, the questions being asked, and some other things, but we landed on pay. I think we should be in the practice of regularly auditing our work to ensure that we are meeting the standards of progressive best practice in our equity and inclusion work. Diversity is a different measure. It often just speaks to representation, and you can be diverse and represent various categories of people and they still not feel included or still feel that they've been treated equitably and fair. So we move beyond diverse because we're not just interested in representation. We're interested in the work around equity, which you see represented in part here.
Thank you.
Ms. Hall?
So moving forward, your plans are to make sure that we're auditing the work that we're doing, right?
I
if
will
we're
be bringing that.
Huh?
It's going to take resources, Mrs. Hall.
Okay.
It will take resources because
So-
it's not something I can do internally. I can support an audit. I can ask questions. I can disrupt practices. I can help put systems in place. But when you're talking about real audits, it should be an external provider that does that.
Or would we just say, this is a practice that we put in place. This is what we want to do. Who's following up to make sure that we're doing it?
That would be me as well as everyone else
Okay.
in this district.
Okay.
Because you can't land the work with one person.
Right.
It,
So I'm
it
just
has
saying
to be
that's being
threaded.
done, right? Just
It
the
has-
follow-up.
We're moving along. We
Okay.
need an audit of our practices.
Okay.
And that's going to take resources.
Got it.
So, Dr. Chapman, when we're saying this too, we're saying that we need an outside edit audit from individuals, but once we get that outside audit, that we need to come inside and say where we at. Probably get together with all the department heads within the district to say where we falling short at, if we're falling short in some areas, and then let's make the improvements. Is that correct?
Well, think about what happens with an audit, right? You're going to learn what's working, what's not working. There will be recommendations for improvement. There will be findings and evidence around what is found and reported in the audit. And so those become the plan, the blueprint, what we would follow then to correct those things in order that we become a best practice. We are not a best practice yet in our work around supplier diversity, or many other divisions for that point. But I brought this because of the conversations that we've been having. You all can reference the fact that there are standards for this work that exist, that this isn't just something that Dr. Chapman made up. Right, this has been vetted by some of the best top-notch business entities in the country and the world. I can show you the list of organizations that use this as a practice to assess where they are.
Ms. Hall?
Do we have a dollar amount of, like, how much would be needed if we outsource this?
I do not.
Okay.
I'd have to go back to the requests for proposals that were submitted almost 3 years ago now, which probably wouldn't be valid today.
So those have never been just, like, canceled? They're still out?
We did not conduct audits of any other area other than human resources, and it was a pay equity audit.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Anything else you have for us, Dr. Chapman?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And, you know, I know years ago when we brought this to the board, I know David James sent you to Washington with me, and you said it's a lot of work that we needed to do at that time. And we have made some progress, but I don't think we made the progress that we thought we should be at right now within the district when that was brought into the district. So I thank you for that, and thank you for the work that you're
I have
doing.
a lot of work to do.
Yes.
I'm interested in best practice, really.
Right.
You know, we do some things well, and we do some things not so well. And as we can hear from our community and members of our community, where there is an issue that people feel strongly enough about to come and fill a boardroom and to bring folks to the podium to have a 3-minute remark period, then it's important enough for us to pay attention to, in my opinion.
True. Ms.
I just
Hall?
want to say I totally agree with you, because we're asking the public their thoughts and their opinions, and will you do this for us? But when we don't want to hear what they have to say, that's a problem, and we're contradicting ourselves. So I appreciate the work that you do. And I ask residents to come to our equity meetings, not just during the board meeting. Come to the equity committees and let us know what is going on and what are the issues so that we can work through it. Then we can go to the actual board meeting and discuss it with all the information. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Hall.
Anything else? If not, we will adjourn. Thank you, everyone.